Is people having less sex a big deal?
It is a big deal. Well, ask anyone who's not having sex if it's a big deal. I think they'll tell you, yeah, it is a problem. Especially considering that it is young men who are typically in their prime and at the peak of their sexual drive. So not only is it, I think, quite frustrating for them, but also when you're in a situation like that where you're struggling, and it's not just about the sex, it's also about the connection and the emotional intimacy and the larger feeling of connectedness and community. So sextinction is very much about the sex recession and the fact that young people, millennials and Gen Z in particular, are having less sex than previous generations. And I was skeptical at first. I thought that this talk about the sex recession and sexlessness was overblown. But after I sat down, I got a chance to go through the data myself, look at the media reportage, talk to people. And we see consistently with multiple data sets that 1 in 3 men and 1 in 5 women have not had sex in the past 12 months, which is a large number of people. And so I was interested with this book, what is taking the place of sex? And what does that say about where we're headed in the future?
How different is modern sexual activity to what we understand about the past?
Well, in terms of, say, the outlets that we have available, so one question has been, is sex really on the decline, or is it that other outlets are taking the place, like porn, with some masturbation, things like OnlyFans, or now AI companions? So each of these subjects have a different chapter in the book to themselves, and in myself explaining, trying to understand what the trend is about. Is it convincing? I test them out myself, which was a lot of fun in many cases. Going through the scientific research in terms of what we do know about these technologies, and then also talking about the evolutionary biology and psychology that is underpinning them. So what makes these technologies alluring to human beings, and why is it that it's potentially dangerous or distracting us from real-life sex?
How different is the amount of sex, person-on-person sex, that modern people are having compared with what we understand about the past?
Well, everyone across the board is having less sex. So regardless of whether you are married or in a relationship or single, it's in Eastern countries, Western countries, basically all developed countries and all age cohorts. But as I mentioned, more specifically among young people. But your question earlier about, is it taking the place of potentially masturbation or other outlets or other sexual outlets? And if you look at studies that are asking about adolescent sexuality. So this is a understandably uncomfortable subject, right, to think about adolescent sexual awakening, but they had parental consent, so it's a legitimate study. And what they found is even among adolescents, they are having lower rates of masturbation, and across the board with everyone, less partnered sex, less intercourse, less anal sex, less all types of sex, oral sex, partner masturbation, I said, solo masturbation as well. So across the board, there's been this decline. So it's not that people are just preferring masturbation, although I do think that is something that is happening, especially when we look at pornography and AI girlfriends and boyfriends and that type of thing. But it seems like there's something else. There's a larger phenomenon. And I also speak to the role of endocrine disruptors in one chapter, because I think there's something else biologically happening.
So it's not just that the pie of sexual activity has been redistributed from person on person to solo person or person with machine or person with doll or whatever. It's that the overall size of the pie has gotten smaller too. There is less sexual activity happening as an aggregate.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that seems to be the case. And what I find interesting, as you mentioned, with like dolls and robots, with the technology improving over time, I didn't think this was going to be the case. I always thought people would prefer in-person, real-life sex, but I'm beginning to think people are actually preferring these solo methods, and it's potentially dangerous if it comes to the point where we have these surrogates like robots where you can implant an AI and they are no different from a real-life person. I really think people are eventually some people will be turning that way, but it's going to be much more popular than I had anticipated.
When did the sex recession start, in your opinion?
It's been documented for probably the last 30 years or so. Like the 90s was when it really started to taper a little bit, but it's been the most, I'd say, prominent in the last 20 years. COVID definitely played a role in making things worse, but it was happening before that. So the internet, I think, is a big part of what's happening. Smartphones as well, social media. So sadly, social media was supposed to make us more connected, and it's, if anything, seems to have made us more divided, even outside of the realm of sexuality. I think in terms of politically, in terms of men and women, in terms of even subcultures on the internet, just everyone seems to be fighting with each other and hating each other. So I think that's feeding into it as well. There's this larger like political hatred that's happening between men and women that's also fomenting this decline in sex. Because if you hate the opposite sex, it's going to be very difficult to want to have a relationship with them or to date them.
I had some stats I wanted to read out to you. 1 in 8 26-year-olds are a virgin. 24% had no sex in the past year, about double the rate of 2010. Among men from 18 to 24, around 1 in 3 report no sexual activity in the past year. 26% of US adults reported no sex in 2021. 37% of adults having weekly sex is down from 55% in 1990. 37% weekly, down from 55%. 37% of Gen Z had no sex in the last month versus 19% of millennials. So even when we're talking millennials haven't got it, there's a big jump again. 48% of married couples had no sex in the past month. And the dead bedroom subreddit is just cranking at the moment. But this is my favorite one. This is my favorite one by far. Survey of Gen Z found 67% would prioritize a good night's sleep over sex.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Not surprised.
You like a good night's sleep?
Well, that too. But the fact that, this is such a common trend. And it started, 2016 was when the first really big study came out showing this. And at the time I thought, this is probably a fluke. It's probably a one-time thing. But more and more, it just consistently, right? It's like so many data sources are showing the same thing. It's very concerning. I do think mental health is another big part of it, right? I think people are very exhausted, right? Day-to-day life. But it's also lacking prioritization of sex. These other replacements for sex are taking the place because they're easier. And then globally, 5% of people are depressed right now. So if you're depressed or you're anxious, like Gen Z is half of Gen Z has a diagnosed mental disorder, and of them, 90% have anxiety. There's a lot of anxious Gen Zers. And so if you're anxious and depressed, the last thing you're going to want to do is go out and meet people, sit down, have a date, potentially face rejection, have to be entertaining, loss of motivation, feeling very self-conscious, all of this stuff. So like it's multifaceted in terms of, I think, all of the factors that are leading people to decide instead, I'd rather just stay at home and swipe on apps, even if I'm not meeting anybody, or sleep. Sleep.
Or sleep.
Yeah.
What's happening with hypergamy?
Hypergamy has taken on a life of its own, I think, in internet culture. So it's this, from a research perspective or scientific perspective, it's the idea that women tend to want to date or marry men who are at the same level of success or who are more successful than they are. So women typically marry up. And so, yes, this is true. I think in some ways it's gone a little bit off the rails because, I write in Sextinction about 3 6s rule. So the idea that women look for men who are 6 feet or taller, who make 6 figures or more, and who have a 6-inch penis. Can I say penis on your podcast?
You can say penis if you like.
Every other media outlet, I've been like, is it okay if I say this? You can bleep it out. So, or manhood. So basically, if a man does not meet those criteria, he's not considered worthy of your time in, say, the internet dating culture for women. And I do, none of those things really correlate with success in a relationship or marriage. So when you do the calculations, as I have, it comes down to like this tiny, tiny percentage. And then you have to also take into account, is he nice to you? Do you have chemistry? Do you have things in common? Can you have a conversation? Does your conversation last more than 5 seconds? So the more important factors whittle it down even smaller of a percentage. So I think women who are abiding by these criteria may be missing the bigger picture.
How many women do you think are abiding by the 3 6s rule?
So it's interesting because when you look at the internet and what's on social media, this is something that women are really pushing forward. I question, but at the same time, having talked to a lot of men about what dating is like nowadays, from what I've been told, women have really unrealistic standards in terms of what they're looking for. But I would also say, social media has made men want to date super hot, women who may or may not look like their photos, may be super photo edited and really perfect looking, but may or may not look like that in real life, or might have a ton of procedures, as I have a chapter on plastic surgery. So I think both sexes have very unrealistic expectations of what they want. But like anything, like evolutionary psychology and biology is not prescriptive. It's not saying this is what you should do. It's just basically generalizing or noticing trends in behavior or that explains mating psychology. And like anything, the internet takes it and just runs away with it.
I don't know. My favorite place for doing mating research is the pool at Soho House here in Austin. And it's fucking ground zero for looking at mating dynamics. And a lot of the time I'd be there with friends and there'd be a group of girls on the bed next to us and they'd be 24 or something and they're paying for a Soho House membership and it's a couple of grand a year, so they're probably educated and earning well or whatever. They have never said, oh, it's because of the size of some guy's penis. Now you could say they wouldn't want to publicly state that. That's kind of a bit uncouth. That's going to make them seem a little bit silly. The data that I saw from Mac and Murphy the last time he was sat in that seat suggests that if you're a guy with a 6-inch erect penis, you're in like the 97th percentile. So it's bigger than basically any woman has ever seen. So I get the sense that that's not an issue. The 6-pack abs, if you switch it out for that,
right,
which is a guy that's sort of muscular and in good condition, I could see that a little bit more. I think if women actually saw like full 6-inch penises more, they would actually be like, 98th percentile.
Well, yeah, because the average penis is 5 inches.
Yes.
But what's interesting is most women say they want a 6-inch penis. Most men think women want a 7-inch penis.
And most men think that they have a 6-inch penis, probably.
Most men are actually harder than themselves. I didn't mean to.
Oh, they have they think they have a 4-inch penis.
Yeah.
They have a 5-inch penis.
Yeah.
Women want a 6-inch penis and men think that women want a 7-inch penis.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
and so that's the thing also with hypergamy. I feel men are really, I don't want to say hard on themselves, but difficult. They challenge themselves more than they need to.
Keep using the word hard. It's fine.
Because they think like women want, again, like I read about looks maxing. Men think that women want this super hot Chad guy, that he has a perfect bone structure, that he has to have all these metrics, right? Especially guys are getting penile injections in terms of filler, or they're getting like enlargement and women, I mean, yes, some women do like those things, but by and large, most women care more about resources and protection and are you a good person? So I think hypergamy has also gone off the rails a bit in that way, in that men think that women just keep wanting more and more and more and better and better and better. And to some extent, that's true. But I think also like we have to give love some credit as well. And if you're happy with someone, I don't think the other person is going to have a reason to go elsewhere.
Yeah, I get this, and the internet, it makes a lot of sense on the internet because it's very easy to put into a spreadsheet. I can put my height, I can put my penis length, which I do all the time. I can put all their objective metrics, and it's kind of like that is having a boyfriend cringe now article. Yeah. Very quickly, if you go outside, you realize that is having a boyfriend cringe is only true on the internet in the same way as the Kardashians made skinny not a fad as cringe. Like it really doesn't exist if you go out into the real world. If you go and sit around Soho House pool, for the most part, the issues that at least I hear from women and that I hear at my live shows is guys aren't ready to commit and they're not sufficiently emotionally educated and they don't seem very balanced and they don't really have their life together. They don't have a mission and they don't know where they're going. Now, I think that a lot of that is maybe publicly acceptable ways of putting a more difficult to define sense that there just wasn't chemistry. Something wasn't quite right. Why? It's like, well, if you're a post-grad girl trying to date a blue-collar guy, there might be a little sense of socioeconomic imbalance going on here. And have you heard me talk about the tall girl problem? I've given you this one.
I have the high heel problem.
Yeah, fucking Scott Galloway. Scott Galloway keeps calling it the high heel effect because he's ancient and he's demented. It's the tall girl problem. And then he stole it from me and started talking about it on CNN and misnamed it. And now anyway.
Tell me, Chris, what is the tall girl problem?
Look, it's exactly what you're talking about, which is if you have women that are socioeconomically more successful, you have an ever-increasing group of high-performing women and an ever-decreasing group of ultra-high-performing men that are above and across from them. That gives most men this sort of invisibility cloak that means that they're not seen by women as potential protector providers. It creates a large cohort of women that did everything right. I went to university. I got the job. I pursued my career. I've got financial independence. And I'm struggling to find any guys that I'm attracted to. And I can't really work out why. And he seems really good, but that guy that's in the rarefied strata at the top has a wealth of options. So they're able to use and discard women. And then that really sort of gnarly outcome is that if you have casual sex with somebody, that skews your own self perspective of your mate value. your self-referential mate value perspective gets a little bit tuned up, and you think, well, I got it for one night. I should be able to get it. It's like there is a difference between what you can get on rent and what you can buy, and that altogether it doesn't make for a very easy environment, because these women don't want to be used and discarded, but they also don't necessarily feel that much resonance with the guys that are in the cohort of men that are socioeconomically below them. Men that are in relationships where they're not the primary breadwinner, 50% more likely to use erectile dysfunction medication. Man loses his job, the likelihood of marriage, of divorce doubles. Woman loses her job, no difference in terms of the likelihood of divorce. So all of these things are kind of raw physics of the system. And we can say, well, maybe you can offset hypergamy. Maybe people are not going to, the women are going to learn to value other things in this way. And I get the sense that this is more the literal physics of the system, like largely unbreakable. And I mean, that for coupling, for young people, especially given women out-earn men by $1,500 per year up to age 30.
1 in 7 couples now the woman is the primary breadwinner.
Yeah. The bottom 40% of male earners and the top 20% of female earners are dating female primary breadwinner. Mm-hmm. So the top quintile for women and the bottom 2 quintiles for men are dating in the opposite hypergamous direction. Just that, like, don't even need to talk about the endocrine disruptors and the desire for sex and porn and all the rest of it. Just the coupling, right? Just simply the coupling there. Because I'd be interested to know how much hypergamy plays a role when it comes to a one-night stand.
Well, okay. So that's a huge thesis of my book, this idea that because women are becoming more educated, more financially successful than men, they have fewer suitable bachelors to choose from. So what you find is that very successful
Tall girl problem.
Well, I need to coin my own term for this.
It's fine.
So, and I'll go on CNN and
then misquote it. Call it something else. Call it something else. And then you and Scott can have a fucking battle to the end of time to work out who can misquote me. It's fine.
So what happens, as you're saying, is that there's this smaller pool of very successful men who have their pick of the lot, who they're disincentivized in terms of settling down. Mm-hmm. So if they want, I mean, they can have multiple marriages in a row. You will see this happening. So you can't have, polygyny, but what you'll have is multiple marriages in a row. So they'll marry someone, have children, divorce her, have another marriage, have children, divorce her, go on. Mm-hmm. So, and then what happens is with men's dual mating strategy is that, you have long-term choices and short-term options. And so the women who fall into the short-term bucket may erroneously think that they're one of the long-term options, but men very much, when they meet someone or meet a woman, they choose which bucket she's going to go into, and there's not much chance of a crossover.
Madonna whore complex.
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of hypergamy and how to fix it, I think getting rid of DEI would be one start, so diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives, because that actively penalizes men, punishes men for no good reason. And if you are...
Is that true? It actively penalizes men as opposed to just lifting up other groups?
Yeah, well, I mean, coming from academia, I can tell you that they actually have job postings, I've seen them myself, where they explicitly will say, this job is for, a minority or a woman, basically ruling out white men. And
I'm an immigrant. So.
So it doesn't affect you.
No,
but it's crazy. I mean, I've had so many colleagues tell me this. I'm not in academia anymore, but they will tell me the things that they experience behind basically closed doors, where if they want to apply for something, they'll be discouraged because they'll say this position is for a woman or for a minority, so don't bother applying. So this is just one, faction of society. My understanding is this happens everywhere. This was very much in like corporations as well, but I think it's been hopefully dialed back a little bit, right?
And your goal here is if you enable men to get access socioeconomically, that allows this imbalance, the tallness of women, the men get to grow tall, a little bit taller.
Right. It lets it be a little bit more of like an organic outcome.
Isn't it strange? There's sort of a zero-sum perspective of empathy that any support that's given to any group is seen as being taken away from another group, especially one that's more deserving. And that if we support and raise up men, that means that we're taking it away from some minority or somebody else that should deserve it. But if your goal is to live a happy life, if you're not enabling guys, if you're a girl, woman, or a mother, right? You don't even need to be in the dating pool. Married mother that's exited the dating pool. Presumably you want your daughters to be able to have eligible partners. Mm-hmm. The very dearth of eligible men is caused buy the fact that they're not being given this kind of access. Now, it's an interesting one because I don't know if men are actually that keen about the idea of going to university.
Well,
I don't know how driven they are about the career thing in quite the same way anymore. They are at the tails.
Part of it, I think, is because of the DEI and the feminism, and that they sense that they're not going to get a fair chance. You know, if they're being taught all through, say, the education system in high school, even girls are getting. I've seen polls where they show like male students say they feel it's unfair. Girls are favored by teachers, so already they're feeling a bad taste in their mouth. And then you go to apply to university, and you know that the odds are stacked against you. I do think that I understand why some people, especially some women or more progressive women, may be fearful of allowing men to have a fair chance or to roll back some of the advantages that have been given to women because they fear, is this the start of us not being allowed to work?
Regression.
Yeah, or not being allowed to pursue education or own property or things like that. But I think they have a very misguided idea of what the outcome is going to be, because if it continues this way, where women are continuing to outperform men in education, they make more money, who are you going to date? You know, they think that the men, because these men have fewer options, that they're all going to be clamoring for these women. But these women, because they're so educated, they're not going to want anything to do with these guys.
Correct.
So they're all fighting for the smaller pool of men, and it's going to be vicious.
Yeah, it's not good. In other news, you've probably heard me talk about Element before, and that's because I am, frankly, dependent on it, and it's how I've started my day every single morning. This is the best tasting hydration drink on the market. You might think, why do I need to be more hydrated? Because proper hydration is not just about drinking enough water. It's having sufficient electrolytes to allow your body to use those fluids. Each grab-and-go stick pack is a science-backed electrolyte ratio of sodium, potassium, and magnesium. It's got no sugar, coloring, artificial ingredients, or any other junk. This plays a critical role in reducing muscle cramps and fatigue while optimizing brain health, regulating your appetite, and curbing cravings. This orange flavor in a cold glass of water is a sweet, salty, orangey nectar, and you will genuinely feel a difference when you take it versus when you don't, which is why I keep going on about it. Best of all, there's a no questions asked refund policy with an unlimited duration. Buy it, use it all, and if you don't like it for any reason, they give you your money back and you don't even have to return the box. That's how confident they are that you'll love it. Plus, they offer free shipping in the US. Right now, you can get a free sample pack of Element's most popular flavors with your first purchase by going to the link in the description below, heading to drinklmnt.com/modern wisdom. That's drinklmnt.com/modern wisdom. How's birth control contributed to this?
So birth control has affected mating psychology. I'll start with women. It's because birth control halts ovulation. So just very briefly for your audience, in case they may not be aware of how birth control works, ovulation is when women are the most fertile in their cycle. So that's when they can become pregnant. So that window is typically around, say, day 11 to 16 of your cycle. So your first day of menstruation is day 1, and then it goes into, I'll leave it at that. So basically, when you're ovulating, because you can get pregnant, your sexual psychology is, we'll say, at its peak. I think it's a very interesting time to be studying in terms of women and their mating decisions, because that's when their decisions about sex have the greatest potential consequences. So if you're halting that process in a woman, or an entire multiple generations of women, 1 in 10 women of childbearing age is on the pill. So
1 in 10?
Mm-hmm.
I would have thought it would be more.
You would think it's more, but it's...
What about in the West?
11%. That's in America.
No way, it's only 11%.
Yeah, according to the CDC.
Have you encountered that's any type of birth control, or just the pill?
Just a pill.
So you could have the implant, arm implant thing, you could have the injection, you could have IUD, you could have Mirena coil. Yeah,
all the in Sex Extinction, I have the statistic regarding like all birth control, but or rather all contraception. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the pill specifically, so what happens is if you're not ovulating, you're basically blunted in terms of that sexual interest and that signaling. Because during that time, women have been shown in studies to wear more provocative clothing. They're more likely to want to go out to clubs and meet men, to socialize, things like that, right? To meet partners. And also men can tell when women are ovulating. So they can tell in terms of a woman's appearance. They can tell by her scent. And men who are in...
You can tell by the way that they walk. You see that study where they did silhouettes of women walking down the street? Yeah. So good.
Yeah, it's wild. So and men in relationships will show more mate guarding behaviors when their partner is ovulating if she's not on the pill.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
He'll call and check up on her. I don't know that these men are necessarily consciously aware, but they're trying to basically, like C-block other guys. So if that's off the table entirely, surely that's doing something as well to men's mating psychology. And so I think if women want to take the pill or not take the pill, that's their choice. But I wish there was more in terms of information for young women, especially considering that many young women get on the pill when they are, say, teenagers. They're on it for non-sexual purposes, so things like regulating their menstrual cycle or, say, for their skin or whatever reason. And they, I don't think, are aware necessarily of this side effect and how this might change their reproductive choices. Because what happens is once you get on the pill, and I have a chapter on reproductive technology like egg freezing and IVF. So once you start to delay your fertility, you're going to spend more time later on trying to make up for it if you decide to have children. And I don't think that young women are necessarily as aware of that either, that your biology is something very important to consider as a woman. And it's, that's seen as sexist to say that, but that's the reality. And, especially if you want a family, it's important to prioritize that because that process is going to affect you in a way that's different for men.
Yeah, I had Sarah Hill completely just took my head off with all of the impact of hormonal birth control. I think that a lot of the modern mental health issues that we're seeing with young women can probably be laid at the feet of, at least, I would love to do a cohort analysis between how many of the people that have got anxiety or depression also took hormonal birth control during puberty or are still on it now. I mean, the fact that your mate choices for women change when you're on the pill versus off the pill, that you seem to prioritize a little bit more for provisioning when you're on the pill and a little bit more for protection when you're off the pill. These are, small effects, but they're there. How many women that I've heard from who said, I was on the pill for ages, then I came off and I wasn't attracted to my partner anymore. Okay, but when is the first time that most women come off the pill if they've been on it since they were teenagers? It's when they're ready to have kids. But if you're doing it right, you've gone teenagers, 20s, found a partner, stayed with a partner, golden retriever, moved in together, engaged, married, off the pill, ready to have kids.
Right.
You are deep in it. So great piece of advice is you need to, if you're thinking about getting the golden retriever, right? Not even thinking about moving in, not even thinking about the engagement thing, you should come off the pill. You should come off the pill. And you're just going to have to be extra careful, protection. You should come off the pill and work out if you still like your boyfriend. Because the likelihood of you in some women, it makes them more attracted to them.
Right.
In women that are in relationships with more masculinized, more formidable, more attractive men, they actually get released out of this hormonal fugue state. And they're like, I'm in a relationship with a Chad. This is great. Let me jump on you. But then in other versions, they've been optimizing for something that a more sort of native physiology or hormonal profile of theirs would not have been too keen on. And then when they reveal that mask, they go, oh, I really like you all that much.
Yeah, which is unfortunate for both of them, and it's unfortunate for him. I can only imagine as a guy, if your relationship...
We were in love. Go back on the pill. Go back on the pill. Bring it back.
What was I going to say? I wonder if, because young women are getting on the pill at such a young age, is this partially also why feminism has been so popular and why women really want to feminize men and they see masculinity as toxic? Because if you, while on the pill, your body thinks you're pregnant and you're looking for a nurturing caretaker, is that why there's been this larger movement socially to encourage men to be much more feminine, not to be risk-taking, not to be dominant?
To a degree. I think I could imagine so. I would also imagine that Me Too and a lot of the moral panic around the danger of men generally causes women to want a softer kind of man. Now, they only want a softer kind of man kind of in principle, not in practice.
Right.
In the mid-20 teens, they tried to put what are called cinnamon roll boyfriends or golden retriever husbands on the front cover of romance books. I say this as somebody that was in that industry for a little while.
What's a cinnamon roll?
Cinnamon roll husband. Cinnamon roll husband is sort of soft, fluffy, very non-dominant, very pliable. He's got a bit of a gut, but he's the sort of guy who would be able to put up level shelves, but wouldn't exactly ravage you in the backseat of a car.
Okay.
Right? Very reliable, consistent husband. And with these romance books, the person on the cover is the protagonist, typically. These books were post 50 Shades of Grey, so it should have just ripped, right? You're buying Bitcoin at 5 cents. The market's only going up. Nobody wanted to buy them. Nobody wanted to buy these. Now, it is kind of like female porn. So do you really want to watch, do you want your sexual fantasy to be about some guy that can put up level shelves but isn't that good in the bedroom, no matter how much you try and sort of repurpose it? But the point is, women like the idea of this kind of, they'll proclaim it, right? It's a view that they'll endorse, that men should dial back their dominance and their desire for conquer and aggression and mastery and stuff like that. But it's not one that they will endorse it but not embody it. And when push comes to shove and you go, oh, yeah, he should be more soft and more gentle and less concerned with achieving things and stuff. What does your husband do? Oh, he's a hedge fund manager. Oh, fantastic. Very good. I used to do MMA as a young guy. Yeah, lovely. But I do think on the birth control thing, you're right. What is it doing to men? I think that, well, there's evidence to suggest that men who are around old women, postmenopausal, or young girls, their testosterone drops, their fertility drive drops. So I know that you've got a question around what's the X factor that's contributing to testosterone dip. I think that the artificial suppression of female fertility through birth control and the increasing isolation of men, that they're not hanging around with fertile women or any women at all, and of them, more of them are elected infertile through birth control. I think that is definitely a potential X factor that I don't think anybody has priced in. No one's priced in the fact that male sex drive and their hormone profile is impacted by the fertility of the women in their local ecology. And if you're not around women that are fertile and not around women at all, that is going to drive your sex drive down, and it's going to drive your testosterone down.
Interesting. I was going to ask you, what was it like shooting for those novels? Have you talked about this?
So the way that I used to do it was I would shoot with a photographer for just my portfolio stuff. So it wasn't purposefully raunchy shit. I guess I don't know. I just turned it on. I don't know what happened. Anyway, it got picked up. The first shoot that I did got picked up by a really good author and put on the cover of a book called Ricochet. And then I got flown out to go and do some of these, they're like book conventions, I suppose.
Oh.
But the entire thing is like 2,000 dark romance readers. So there's me and a couple of the other cover models, and then the husbands of the authors that are there to help them.
Okay.
And that's it. And it's just, apart from that, it's just female readers, which sounds wonderful in practice, but I was 27, 28 or something like that. The age profile, I was the youngest person in the room, usually by like a factor of 2. Anyway, it was interesting. It was fun. It's a part of my history, but I've aged out. Yeah. I might just pivot into cinnamon roll husband. I can't wait for that. Get a go. Yeah. Chill out.
There you go. If this podcast,
if it tanks, fuck it. Well, anyway, so you've already got what's happening with hormonal birth control for women, and then we do have endocrine disruptors for men too.
Yeah. So definitely, I mean, there've been a number of studies showing this, that testosterone levels have been declining for the last, say, 40 years. And it's been, pretty severe, I would say, in the last 20 years. And researchers have accounted for things like age, diet, weight, exercise, lifestyle choices like alcohol, smoking, and cannabis. And still they say there's something going on here where it is environmental and that it is something specific to this time period. And so they do think that there's something, in terms of the food we're eating potentially, or in our water supply. I've read a lot of the animal literature in terms of drugs in the water and how this affects fish or
what are the craziest stories that you learned about that?
There was one species of Japanese fish, and they tested diazepam. So, there was one study that looked at fish that were exposed to pharmaceutical waste, and then also I'm trying to think what the other source was, but basically one part of the water supply, the fish were masculinized. So they're intersex in both directions. Some of the fish were more more masculine, and then some of them were feminized. So it's basically saying, this is happening to the fish. Like, what do you think it's doing to humans? But with these Japanese fish, they were lethargic and they were basically too knocked out to breed. The courtship behavior was messed up. The female fish, their ovaries were so distended, and I felt really bad for the fish looking at these pictures because I thought that doesn't look, very healthy or comfortable. So it's basically, these drugs are doing something to us, and how, if you're not even aware of it, even if you do manage to find a partner and you fall in love and decide you do want to have a family, you might come up against these issues. And then if you're not even aware that this is what you're ingesting on a daily basis, what do you do then?
SSRIs drive sex drive down, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they affect the libido. And there's also post-SSRI sexual dysfunction.
Syndrome. Yes. PSSSD.
Yeah, and the fact that in many cases we don't know the effects of these drugs on children, and in some cases they are being prescribed to kids. So that's very concerning.
A quick aside, you've probably heard experts like Dr. Rhonda Patrick talk about the benefits of omega-3s. They reduce, omega-3s. There they are. They reduce brain function. No, they don't. They support brain function. Maybe I should take more. They support brain function, reduce inflammation, improve heart health, and are backed by hundreds of studies. But here's the thing, all omega-3s are not made the same. Most brands cut corners. They use cheap fish oil, skip purity testing, throw in fillers, and call it a day. But with Momentous, you're getting the highest quality omega-3s on the market. They're NSF certified for sport, and they're tested for heavy metals and purity. So you can rest easy knowing anything that you take from Momentous is unparalleled when it comes to rigorous third-party testing. What you read on the label is what's in the product, and absolutely nothing else. Best of all, Momentous offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can buy it and try it for 29 days. If you don't love it, they'll just give you your money back. Plus, they ship internationally. Right now, you can get 35% off your first subscription and that 30-day money-back guarantee by going to the link in the description below or heading to livemomentous.com/modernwisdom and using the code modernwisdom at checkout. That's livemomentous.com/modernwisdom and modernwisdom at checkout. Is the issue, do you think, more about a desire for sex or coupling?
You mean in terms of why people aren't having it?
Yeah.
It's probably both. I think at the core, everybody wants to find someone. Many people may say that they've given up and they're happy on their own, but I do think that's what most people deep down want. And sex is, the thing with sex, though, I think porn is a big part of this issue in terms of why people are turning away from actual sexual activity. They're getting their needs met through this proxy that simulates real sexual activity, because when you're watching porn, the same network of brain regions is activated as when you're actually having sex. So you're having the resulting orgasm and you are, getting these feel-good chemicals. It helps to self-soothe and regulate your emotions, help calm down if you're stressed out. And so it makes men, I think in particular, less likely to want to go out and go through the hassle of having to talk to a woman, having to sit through a date, having to pay for the date, having to follow up and all this stuff. Like, why bother do that if you can get sexual gratification on a screen? But I think also that leads to potentially like an overall sense of lethargy, because when you are masturbating and having orgasm, you are, you're going to be sleepy after. So is that also, you can tell me, do you think this is a trend, not for you, but just a trend more generally with young men?
Try again.
In terms of, does this affect their motivation? Because I'm wondering for guys, this question of why men are falling behind in society, right? And I'm very concerned for young men, because I hear all the time from parents that their daughters are doing really well, excelling academically, but their sons, just for whatever reason, they're not enjoying it. They're having mental health issues.
I think they're just staying at home and fapping all the time.
Yeah. Well, maybe not fapping, but they're like, vaping and playing video games or online betting or whatever, and they have no motivation. Do you think porn could be part of that? Because I think if you're exposed to this at such a young age, and this is the thing that you're watching every day, and it's your coping strategy, that potentially that's the thing you're going to constantly gravitate toward, and it's actually going to, make you really sedated and lethargic more broadly in life.
Yeah, I think sedated is a great word. I've got another idea that Scott probably can't wait to fucking misquote. The male sedation hypothesis, young male syndrome, which I know that you know about. Historically, high volumes of young sexless men tended to cause anarchy and revolutions and push over granny and set stuff on fire. Why is it, given that we've seen the highest rates of sexlessness amongst young men in the modern world, that we're not seeing the concordant amounts of antisocial behavior? And it's my belief that men are being sedated out of their status-seeking and reproductive-seeking behavior through screens, video games, and porn. And yeah, that's what's happening behaviorally. Maybe there's some endocrine disruptors, maybe a lot of weed. I think more young guys smoke weed than drink alcohol now. So yeah, it is a real push toward lethargy. Do I think that you're anesthetizing yourself from your sort of mate-seeking behavior by being able to use porn? Almost certainly, to a degree. I mean, there's even the opposite, which is, what was it? Masturbate before you evaluate was a tagline at university, which was, do I really want to sleep with that girl? Let me have a wank first and work out if I still do. And for the most part, the guys were like, no, wasn't that? I like, what was it? I didn't like you. I was just horny. And in some ways, you go, that avoids me from making a mistake. But when you do it en masse and when it's very easily available, I mean, look, there's some mixed bag data. Dr. David Ley is very anti-porn panic. I know Mike Israetel's very anti-porn panic too. And then on the other side, there's some people that behaviorally, it's not recognized as an addiction properly yet, I don't think.
Right.
But it seems impossible to me that one of the strongest drivers for humans being given to them freely, they can essentially push a button, like rub a button for a while, and and they get to experience this thing that, I mean, you know what would be fascinating? I would have loved to have seen in hunter-gatherer tribes how much masturbation occurs. Like, is
probably too busy foraging.
Okay, well, that might be true. Just talk to me. The neuroscience of porn use. Is there anything distinct about that that's different to what's happening when people have sex?
Okay, I was going to say something. Oh, so what I was going to say, I agree with you in terms of like, I can see if you're doing it like constantly and it becomes a lifestyle thing. This is what my concern is, if it's like a lifestyle thing for guys. Because I've had men say to me, when they are not watching porn, if they manage to cut out porn entirely, that they actually have more motivation to go up and talk to a woman. Because I would imagine if you see a woman that you're attracted to and you want to go speak to her and say you're maybe more shy or anxious, you know in the back of your mind that you can go home and masturbate and that's going to give you a release after. So in some ways, would that not make it a little bit easier for younger guys, especially who may not have as much experience with women, and especially post Me Too, where they're already a little bit understandably more scared to talk to women, how knowing that you have this other option might...
That's a good point. That is a good point. I mean, it's the same thing as if the only way that men could get sex was by marrying a woman, asking her father, becoming a pillar of the community, showing his competence, or if you just need to be in a nightclub at the right time in the right place at 2 a.m. Like, men will meet those standards appropriately, right, including the standards for themselves in order to get sexual gratification through a screen. I mean, it is, I can't remember who it was that said it to me, but just for a second, think about how stupid the human brain is and think about how strong our sex drive is. That looking at a 7-inch across screen that I am not a part of someone else having sex with someone else can confuse my brain into thinking some sex is going to happen here.
Yeah.
Like that is how strong this drive is, right? That a 2-dimensional, exclusively video and audio representation on a teeny tiny little screen popped up against a pillow is enough to convince your brain there might be some sex on. You should respond appropriately.
Yeah.
It is mad.
Also think about what it's doing to kids. Like, this is one of the rabbit holes I've been going down more recently and thinking about how has this affected Gen Z's development if they're exposed to porn at such a young age. But in terms of the difference between, say, what's going on in the brain, so same brain network, basically, like regions that are involved in physiological arousal, penile tumescence, visual regions. This was my dissertation, actually, so it takes me back now. I'm trying to remember what other parts of motor.
You did a dissertation on penile tumescence?
No, not just penile tumescence, but it was on basically like male sexuality and sexual arousal. And yeah, I looked at the structure and function of the brain. I used 4 different types of brain imaging. It was a lot of fun. It was a very expensive study, but I was I was extremely blessed.
Really fun for the men. Yeah.
And so basically, it's the same network. It's not activated as strongly, but it's very much the same regions, and that's why pornography is so compelling, and why I think for people who, especially if that is your primary mode of sexual release, it very much become a preference or a stand-in.
You're habituating. More than anything, it's just, what do you do? You know, guys that tend to go to the same bar all the time, sit in the same seat, order the same coffee, like, and it just becomes a part of your daily routine. And there's this weird habituation effect, I think, with porn. Mary Harrington calls it the law of fap entropy, which is whatever you start out wanking to gets progressively more extreme over time.
That's actually, I like her work, but actually that's not exactly accurate.
Tell me what is accurate.
For guys who end up watching, quote, extreme stuff, that's actually what they liked all along. It just took them a while to admit it to themselves.
Oh, God, the algo wasn't delivering them what they needed until it took a bit of time to refine it.
Well, because understandably, men who have these unusual sexual preferences, they're
Blueberry
a
porn
little bit, yeah, balloons. Yep. They're a little bit more reluctant to say out loud. So
even to themselves. And so that's so interesting.
When they're explaining to, say, their partner or their friends, or if they're talking about this,
that's so good. I love that. I mean, the law still works, but not for the reason that you think. It's not a progressive habituation to more extreme stuff. It's a progressive revealing to yourself of what you wanted. That's so cool. What about gooning? Let's talk about gooning.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I mean, you could spend your life masturbating, watching porn if you want to. There's enough content out there for sure. So gooning, I'm sure your audience knows what this term is, but it's basically predominantly men who like to masturbate to no end in sight. And basically, my understanding, they might have multiple screens open for hours. They don't reach an orgasm. It's like edging, but for a longer period of time. And they don't really have any conflict about it. They quite enjoy it.
How's porn affected women?
I think there are more women struggling with porn issues than people realize, because this has predominantly been an issue, like, say, porn, quote, addiction. Although, like you said, I don't believe porn is addictive. I think it's a poor coping mechanism for people who have anxiety and who procrastinate. That's certainly what it's been. When I talk to men.
Sedating, not addicting.
Yeah, well, because if you say you have anxiety or you lack assertiveness, it's a very easy way to distract yourself and not have to deal with the problems in your life, which I have a lot of compassion for people who struggle with this, because I think because it's pornography, it's related to sex, it's a lot more stigmatized. So I understand why people want to call it an addiction, because there have been studies that claim that it's addiction, but they don't account for other confounding variables. So they don't ask about things like paraphilias. From what I've seen, they don't ask about anxiety. So you don't know, when you're looking at these brain regions that are supposed to be different, that are correlated with addiction, you don't know if what you're seeing in the people with porn problems is due to addiction, or is it due to the fact that they're anxious, or the fact that they have these unusual sexual interests. So I think that research could be a little bit cleaner. If it does happen that new studies come out showing this, then I'm fully on board with that. But I'm just not really convinced, because when you talk to guys with porn problems, almost always they have anxiety. And this is a way for them to avoid talking to their spouse or their girlfriend.
So what's different with women?
Women, I think it's the same thing. We don't know as much about women, because this is an issue that I think has only really become more of a problem with the younger generation, maybe even millennial women, like younger millennial women, with the accessibility of porn. But I think even, because it's even with studies, when they're looking at, say, the effects of porn on kids, women have only really started to show more negative body image, say, or body comparison more recently, because girls are being exposed to it now. Girls tend to watch porn later than boys, and they tend to watch it maybe once or twice out of curiosity. But I do think with, like, Gen Z, they're being exposed to this even before their first sexual experience, before their first orgasm. They can make sense of it, and I think that it can be integrated into their life a little bit more. So the same thing, I think anxiety, usually for anyone with a porn issue, there's a history of some form of sexual trauma, unfortunately. So there it's a way that
anyone with a porn issue, or
most
people with a porn issue, there is some history of sexual trauma.
Not everyone, but in my experience, many of them have had some issue with, either with abuse or being exposed to porn at a young age, either accidentally, and that was like a traumatic thing. Like when I say trauma, I'm not, the way sometimes people use the word trauma nowadays is very flippant, right? They use it over the
You mean actual?
Insignificant thing. No, I'm referring to something that is actually quite horrific and awful. Or they, or they might have been shown it in the process of grooming.
So what do you think's going on? Is it just disinhibition, dysregulation? Is it the same reason that people who maybe had a childhood trauma struggle with, gambling or struggle with drugs or alcohol or their emotions, rage? Is it just the same, but the particular pathway these people have found is porn? Or is there something specific about the mechanism that porn gives that helps them to sort of, I don't know, alchemize or try and alchemize whatever they went through?
It could be partially a biological thing because it's like a self-soothing thing. So especially for children, if they're not taught ways to self-regulate, they're looking for ways to feel good when they're stressed out or upset, right? So some people gravitate toward drugs and alcohol. Other people might gravitate toward porn. I think it depends on how old you are, probably when you come across it initially, what your experience is when you see it. Like, is it a pleasurable thing? But I think for the men, say, who've, like when I was doing research, who had these negative experiences in childhood, it was a way of revisiting it to try and make sense of it, I think. But I really strongly believe like sitting down with a competent therapist and working through that stuff could be very helpful for people.
Better than porn.
Yeah.
Before we continue, I've been drinking AG1 every morning for as long as I can remember now, because it is the simplest way I've found to cover my bases and not overthink nutrition, and that is why I partnered with them. Just one scoop gives you 75 vitamins, minerals, probiotics, and whole food ingredients in a single drink. Now, they've taken it a step further with AG1 Next Gen, the same one scoop, once a day ritual, but this time backed by 4 clinical trials. In those trials, it was shown to fill common nutrient gaps, improve key nutrient levels in just 3 months, and increase healthy gut bacteria by 10 times, even in people who already eat well. They've upgraded their formula with better probiotics, more bioavailable nutrients, and clinical validation. Plus, it's still NSF certified for sport, so you know that the quality is legit. Right now, when you first subscribe, you can get a free bottle of D3K2 and AG1 welcome kit, plus bonus AG1 travel packs, and for a limited time, US customers also get a sample of AGZ and a bottle of omega-3s. Just go to the link in the description below or head to drinkag1.com/modern wisdom. That's drinkag1.com/modern wisdom. What do you think about the relationship between porn use and the type of sex that people are having?
In terms of it influencing the type of sex? So in terms of, say, very extreme thing, previously, okay, I would start with before the internet. So because there's a concern about, does porn make men more violent? Does porn make men entitled with sex? Previously, if a man grew up and had his first sexual experience prior to online porn, I would say porn is not the thing that made him, if he is, say, violent or likes to degrade his partners or treat them poorly. I wouldn't say that's porn. I would say that's due to the way he was raised. He's probably antisocial, probably has some dark triad personality going on there, probably doesn't think very highly of women, has a lot of hostility toward women. But those views would have been formed prior to porn. So I don't think porn is the problem. I think he probably was interested in violent porn and violent sex because of other factors in terms of how he was raised, potentially. Nowadays, with the fact that kids are being exposed to this so young, I'm really concerned about how this is affecting their sexuality, because we do see studies coming out showing that kids who are having problematic sexual behaviors, it's due to being sexualized by porn, like early exposure, this trend of sexual choking that I write about in Sextinction, young women, Gen Z women in particular, it's almost ubiquitous. So I think that is be due to them being exposed to this at such a young age and believing that this is what they need to do in order to attract men or to be enticing in the bedroom. And I would be very clear that you could die from doing this. So it's not safe. There's no safe way to do it.
This was Louise Perry's thing that she was helping to prosecute guys that had killed their partners,
right,
and then used whatever it is,
rough sex.
The rough sex excuse thing, which, that's fucking horrific. There is a bit of research that I wanted to talk to you about, which I've never spoken about on the show before. You're probably familiar with. A new study interviewed 302 adults. Of those, more women enjoyed aggression in porn, were aroused by portrayals of female pain, and reported wanting to see more aggression. And this is a bar chart which shows women saying double the number of women saying aggression is arousing, triple the number of men, triple number of women to men, hard aggression is arousing. Maybe 4 times the number of women to men would like more aggression in mainstream pornography. Maybe 30% more actively seek aggression. The only thing that men are stronger on is aroused by women showing pleasure in response to aggression, and that's maybe 5%. Aroused by women showing pain in response to aggression, nearly double women to men.
Okay.
This seems to be this is a small sample size, 302 people, but this is, you can dig deeper and find out kind of the same pattern. And it's something that I remember I once read a feminist who wrote about this, and she said something along the lines of, it's an uncomfortable fact for most modern feminists that women seem to prefer aggressive porn than men do. And misogynists use this as an excuse that, like, she wanted it made type thing. That, to me, does suggest that the picture is a little bit more complex than just guys have learned it in porn.
Yeah.
And now they're doing it to women, and women feel the need to perform up to it. That, no one's pushing women in that way. It's not the only study of that kind. And
no, I agree. I'm not one of those people that think that this is entirely like men pushing it on women and women have no choice but to do it. I do think there are some women out there that's sexual masochism. Mm-hmm. So it's like sexual arousal at the idea of being hurt, humiliated, degraded by your partner. Mm. So that's the only paraphilia that you actually find in women typically. So usually women...
that's so interesting. The only paraphilia that's typical in women, paraphilia being kind of odd sexual proclivities, is...
masochism.
Self-masochism.
Masochism is when it's happening to you. Sadism is when you're doing it to someone else.
Right, okay, cool. How much sadism is there in women?
So when you do see other paraphilias like sadism, it usually is correlated with personality disorders.
Right, the cluster B, dark triad.
Cluster B, yeah.
Okay, anyway, so the masochism for women.
Yeah, so evolutionarily, it could be because women's bodies, have you heard of the study where women basically are aroused to any type of porn? So it's whether it's...
Yes, they're more sexually fluid. Girl on girl, guy on guy, girl on guy. Well, this is why...
Just to be clear, animals having sex, not people having sex with animals. I don't agree with bestiality.
What's that fucking hockey players, the two hockey players boning? What's that thing? It's that series. Not Hot Ones, that's the wing thing. What the fuck is it?
Two hockey players?
Two hockey players. It's taken the world by storm. Heated Rivalry. Fucking Hot Ones.
I didn't know.
Heated Rivalry. I knew I got there. You're Canadian. You're supposed to know. Sorry, it was a hard week for you.
I don't actually watch porn, so that might be why I've never heard of it.
Heated Rivalry was a book. It was a book about these two hockey players on opposing teams, and then they fuck each other.
Why are you reading this?
I'm not reading it, right? This is a big TV show. I've never seen anything like this. I'm the straightest man in the room. This has broken the internet, and you should absolutely have a look at this.
I'll do some Googling.
You'd love to look at this.
Studio. Okay.
So it is basically revealing just how flexible women's sexualities are.
Yeah. That
these two guys, there was a book super popular, then pivoted over into this TV series, and the TV series is fucking ripped. It's like a Brokeback Mountain on ice, right?
But was it actually pornographic, or was it just like hinted?
Asking the wrong guy. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I didn't get... I mean, I have to assume that there was either implied or like pretty close to like raunchy shit happening on the screen.
Okay.
Anyway, that you're quite right. Why is it that you think that women's sexuality is more fluid than men's?
Well, the unfortunate reason is rape. So in the past, right, evolutionarily speaking, it protects the woman's body if she can become aroused regardless of what is happening.
Which is why sometimes during sexual assault, women can still reach orgasm.
Yeah.
And then they feel loads of shame afterward because it's fucking horrific. They think, did I want that? Did I want this thing? How fucking awful am I? I'm traumatized, and now my body did a thing to me that I'm traumatized about as well. It's so brutal.
Speaking to those findings, though, I would be curious to know how they sampled. Like, do you remember like how they sampled for those women?
Preferences related to aggression, pleasure, and pain in pornography among male and female interviewees. I've got I can send you the journal article. But certainly, even if we don't look at aggression is arousing, hard aggression is arousing, like would like more aggression in mainstream pornography, actively seek aggression, aroused by women showing pain in response to aggression. Just look at the romantasy genre.
Mm-hmm. Well, evolutionarily speaking, like in terms of masochism, it would benefit women to show a
capacity to endure pain.
Yeah, or like I want to say subjugation, but it evokes like caretaking behaviors from men, right? If they see that a woman is
great,
like in need of help or support.
I suppose so, to a degree, but there's also a kind of resilience in masochism. right? That I can withstand it. There's almost anti-fragility, not a fragility.
That goes back to the trauma that I talk about in Sex Extinction, and is in the porn chapter about how many individuals who are into BDSM and kink actually do have a history, especially of physical abuse in childhood.
Oh, I imagine that made you very popular.
No, it's still happening now. People are
because you were a sex positive, research writer person, right?
Yeah, I was a columnist for a well-known men's magazine with nude women in it, and writing this book, I was so grateful to have the chance to sit down and really question a lot of the beliefs I had. And I went through my own data that I collected when I was still in sex research, and I found the same thing. And I was amazed. I thought,
what do you mean? You went through the data, and what did you find?
I found that interest in BDSM and kink is correlated with severe physical abuse in childhood. And this is even more so the case for men who are into BDSM and kink as compared to men who are community controls, obviously, men who have porn problems who are not into BDSM or kink, and also more so the case than men who are convicted of child sex crimes. So there's something with physical
BDSM
abuse.
and kink is a better predictor of male childhood abuse, trauma?
Female too.
But than pedophilia is.
Victimization. Convicted sex offenses pornography.
So we don't know how many of those are unreported and stuff like that.
Right, but also there are times when men will abuse children and not necessarily be pedophile. That's like fine, very fine details. But overall, child sex crimes.
What do you think that says about what BDSM and kink is doing for people?
It's really sad. I want to be clear. Like, I'm not saying this to make judgment about people or to try and shame them. I really hope in bringing awareness to this, because BDSM is so commonplace in society, right? It's so normalized almost. It's almost seen like there is a variation, I think, in terms of people who might partake in sexual activity that is like playful or passionate, right? Versus wanting to strangle your partner, wanting to really hurt them, wanting to humiliate them, or if you enjoy those behaviors done to you, especially for women, because physical harm, it wouldn't really make sense for women or men, but why would physical harm be correlated with orgasm? Right? If you can potentially become pregnant from this act, why would it be beneficial to you and your offspring to find physical pain and
what do you think?
Arousing?
Yeah, why?
Why? Because something went wrong with the system.
And it's getting wires crossed.
Yeah. So my hope is that by bringing attention to this, because so many people, I sense, enjoy these things but don't really know why, or they think it's something that it's something they take pride in. And I would just like to say maybe it's something that you should look a little more deeply into.
They're using their sexual preferences as a way to work through something that maybe should be done with a therapist.
Yeah.
Interesting. I remember I was talking to a researcher, and they were telling me about how this, maybe not uncontacted tribe, but this relatively uncontacted tribe, one of the rites of passage that they had for women was that men would get reeds, thick reeds and sticks, whippy sticks, and they would stand there and they would whip the women across their backs. Like every woman in the tribe had huge scars everywhere across their backs, and the goal of the women was to be able to stand there and not flinch, not make noise, not cry, not whimper, not yell, not do anything. And this was supposed to be a presentation of their capacity to endure what would become giving birth, child rearing. And that, when you were talking about it might engender sympathy from men, which I can completely see, like just the power dynamic, the subjugation, all of that does make sense. Allow me to come and hold you. But if you're able to withstand pain, there's also a kind of resilience in that, which I think would almost work against it. So yeah, kind of interesting. I always think about that example when it comes to sort of female behavior in kink. I'm like, is this maybe some kind of demonstration of my capacity, of the woman's capacity to endure hard things physically, not like lift heavy things, right? That's the guy picking you up and putting you against the wall. That's the ability for him to physically dominate you. But the woman's ability to endure the pain might actually be maybe like a fertility cue of some kind, like my pain tolerance. I don't know.
It could be. I could see if
Real nascent idea. It's wet clay, all right?
I could see it if it is something that is like culturally enforced and it's like a rite of passage. But if you as a woman are intentionally putting yourself in those situations when you don't need to, there are plenty of guys out there who are, I mean, vanilla is seen as a negative thing. I don't think being vanilla is a bad thing. So there are plenty of vanilla guys out there who are not going to want to strangle you during sex and not going to want to like, degrade you during sex. So if you're intentionally putting yourself through that, even if it is a way to show how strong you are, why would you choose to do that?
When you don't need to.
When you don't need to.
Romantasy. I was sat on the plane flying to St. Louis a couple of weeks ago, and there was a lovely woman sat next to me, and she had her iPad up, and she was reading Court of Thorns and Roses.
Now, what is that?
That is
more porn.
That is one of the most popular romantasy books at the moment. You're familiar with romantasy?
Is it? It's basically like erotica.
It is. That's probably that's a word that you would use.
Okay.
I respect the art form and also the fact that the fan base is fucking massive, and I don't want to get lynched by them. No. It is story. It's female literacy porn wrapped in quite a lot of story, but there are sort of peak dirty moments. Anyway, our friend is tapping away, and she didn't have her glasses on. The font size was quite large, and I had a realization that chicks can basically watch porn on a plane.
I guess so.
They can basically watch their equivalent of porn on a plane, and I'm looking at this. I'm trying not to move my head at all. I'm keeping my head dead straight. I'm going. And I spoke to some friends after it. I've not read the book. I didn't read enough to fully capture what the narrative arc was.
Okay.
But might be A Court of Thorns and Roses or one of the other books like that, the protagonist is a fairy prince or a fairy king who has the ability to transform himself into this like monstrous beast. And I think that in that sort of shows what it is, one of the sort of archetypal desires that women have, this, he is dangerous, but not around me.
Yeah.
And I think I was talking on the way in about that study with a couple of friends. I have a group of evolutionary psychology researchers in a WhatsApp chat, and whenever I get confused by stuff I put in, they give me the answer. And Andrew Thomas from Uni of Nottingham gave me a fucking fantastic answer for this one. What he said was the aggression is arousing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. He said, what women think is, I want a man who has the capability to be aggressive because protection, attraction, dominance, all that stuff.
High testosterone.
But he'll never be aggressive with me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pattern misfiring of the sort of pattern detection, which is, well, most guys that have the capacity to be aggressive don't have the regulation to be able to turn it off and create bright lines and contain it in that way. If you have a guy who is someone bumps into you on the street or you get scared and he beats up all of the guys that are there, how many of them have gone through the full fucking samurai Keanu Reeves training and come out the other side as, that's not most guys. Most guys that are great and dangerous physically are just dangerous physically everywhere. Not in, it's not compartmentalized.
Yeah. I definitely agree. So that's the allure of, I suppose, the romance novel, where you can have the duality there that doesn't
fairy
exist.
king who can become the beast, but he's never going to be the beast with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting. So we have basically the most sexually permissive culture in history that is also having the least amount of sex.
Yeah, which is wild. It's crazy when you think about, like, I was thinking about social media and even something as subtle as that. Like, everyone's on social media, but I do think even that is changing the way that people view potential partners, how they view their own partners.
How so?
Study that I cited in Sextinction showing that roughly 1 in 10 men actually loses interest in having sex with his own partner after looking at influencers, and that women also feel less sexually desirable after being on social media.
1 in 10 men lose interest, like, for a brief window of time?
They didn't specify.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're less interested in having real sex with their partner when they've been looking at influencers on the internet.
Yeah.
So I do remember at uni, this is so fucking bad.
That was an English study too, actually. So
good. Well, it was probably the people that I used to employ. It was probably the lads that used to work for me. I do remember there was two guys that were going to go on first dates with these two chicks 2 nights in a row. And on the first one, he turned up and he ended up going back with her and having sex. But he said she looked nothing like her Instagram. It was gutting. It's like she was so hot on the Instagram, kind of like a catfish type thing. And he had this joke about he wondered if he could have just sellotaped her Instagram to her forehead so he could have looked at that. And then the next night, the guy went out on one and she was really lovely and great. And then I don't think they'd slept with each other that night. And he came back and looked at her Instagram and got turned off because she wasn't able to present herself in the marketplace of...
But that's a good thing, no?
I said that. That's what I said. I was like, dude, you found a barn find. That's a diamond in the rough. You found somebody that's really fantastic, shows up wonderful in person, that the marketplace where most other people are going to be competing with you for her, she's just not present. I don't know what it was. I didn't do my research.
So what is it he didn't like about the fact that, like, so he can't send people to her profile to look at her?
No, I think that it wasn't even as deep as that. Sorry, it was significantly more deep than that. Not that he couldn't show off this girl that could potentially become his girlfriend or whatever to other people on Instagram. I think what I believed it to be was he was so conditioned to judging a woman's attractiveness through her social media profile, and especially given that it's the most extreme version of you, and for men too, right? The most extreme wealth or whatever, that he got the ick by her having a bad Instagram account, Instagram.
Oh, man.
I don't know. The club promotion industry is a weird and wonderful place, but I'll never forget it. 2 nights in a row, one guy saying, I wish I could have strapped her Instagram to her forehead. And the next night, the guy going, she was amazing, but I went and looked at her social media profile after we'd been on the date. And it was a turnoff, dude. I got the ick because her Instagram wasn't hot. So
he wants the hot Instagram lady who's just as hot in real life.
Yes, I think so. Look, these guys were 19. They had no prefrontal cortex.
I don't even think that's that uncommon, though. I think it's that social media has done something like that more subtly, though, to the general population. You think?
We'll get back to talking in just 1 second, but first, if you have been feeling a bit sluggish, your testosterone levels might be the problem. They play a huge role in your energy, your focus, and your performance, but most people have no idea where theirs are or what to do if something's off, which is why I partnered with Function, because I wanted a smarter and more comprehensive way to actually understand what's happening inside of my body. Twice a year, they run lab tests that monitor over 100 biomarkers. They've got a team of expert physicians that analyze the data and give you actionable advice to improve your health and lifespan. And seeing your testosterone levels and tons of other biomarkers charted over the course of a year with actionable insights to actually improve them gives you a clear path to making your life better. Getting your blood work drawn and analyzed like this would usually cost thousands, but with Function, it's just $499. And right now, you can get $100 off, bringing it down to $399. Get the exact same blood panels that I get and save that $100 by going to the link in the description below or heading to functionhealth.com/modernwisdom. That's functionhealth.com/modernwisdom. Why? So guys are less likely to want to have sex after they looked at influencers, and girls are less likely to feel attractive.
Yeah.
They feel less attractive. Okay, so it's a comparison game.
Yeah.
Right. Why? What do you think's going on? What's the mechanism?
Well, I wrote a chapter about plastic surgery, and when you look at this trend of young, especially really young, in some cases girls getting procedures done, I do think social media has done something to make them feel that they need to do this to compete and to get a partner or to at least be found attractive. And there has to be something with just like constantly being inundated with these images on social media. They have found in, say, adolescent girls that girls who are less popular or girls who tend to do upward comparison, so tend to compare themselves to, say, more attractive women or more popular girls tend to fall prey to this a little bit more.
In an attempt to try and clamber up this felt imbalance of a hierarchy that they're comparing themselves to. Okay, talk to me about what's happened to plastic surgery over time Have we seen increases in it? Have the types changed? What's the context of people getting different looks? The Kardashians did the fucking BBL for a while. Is that still in?
Now it is breast augmentation for Gen Z women. So they are actually, boob jobs are very popular among that cohort.
Okay.
I do think that's influenced by pornography. Also labiaplasty. I was just looking actually at a study a couple nights ago showing that very many young women feel self-conscious about their labia and are actually getting these procedures done, which is also influenced from porn. And it's just crazy to me. It makes me wonder, is that why people are not interested in having sex? Same with guys. Guys are getting filler injections into their penis for even sexting purposes. Like they just want to look bigger.
That's so good. George, my housemate, used to make this joke every time that we were on a plane. It was the same, it's kind of like a dad joke, but he's not yet a dad. And those teeny tiny 175 ml cans of Diet Coke?
Yeah.
He would always say, it's like, I'd keep a hold of one of those and I'd go back and I'd take a dick pic with it in the background. So it would make it look, it's like, oh, that's a 330 or a 355 ml can, but I've kept the airplane mini and that's, comparatively.
I should be doing that instead of getting the filler in their penis.
I agree. Make Diet Coke, mini Diet Coke's great again. So yeah, the labiaplasty and the penis stuff, it seems to be obvious that it would be influenced by porn.
But even things like I see like news reports of women under 30 getting facelifts, getting upper eye lifts, right? And in my personal opinion, I don't think women that young need to be getting extensive work done because you do not have the signs of aging yet to justify.
What do you think they're trying to do?
Well, I think if you look at, say, when women are the most fertile, it tends to be mid-20s. So my sense is most women are trying to look like they're in their mid-20s. So if you're older than that, you're going to try and look younger. And if you're younger, you're trying to look older. And so you're going to choose the
women most fertile in their mid-20s?
Early to mid-20s.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found out some really fucking uncomfortable data around when men are most fertile. Really young.
Yeah.
It's really young.
Yeah.
Like illegal in some states, young. And you go, really? Which is just, I don't know, we talk about women's biological clocks. We never really think about, there's so much sperm, right? Speak for yourself. But there's so much sperm. And you only need one.
Larger window, though. They also have a larger, like men can still impregnate someone later on in life. There are higher rates of chromosomal abnormalities, but the potential, whereas for women, it's a little bit more unforgiving.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, so you think, I've seen, what is buccal fat? Buccal fat?
Yeah, buccal fat removal. Yeah.
That the cheek fat thing?
Yeah.
What's that trying to achieve, do you think?
To look older, because you're removing the baby fat essentially in your face. But what happens is as you get older, your face naturally loses fat, right? And so you're going to look more gaunt.
You've overshot it.
Yeah, and then you might potentially need to use filler to...
So I got fat removal before I was 24. And then after I was 28, I had to use filler to replace where I got rid of the fat. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I want to be clear, like, I don't want to come down on men and women if they choose to get these procedures, because I understand, especially if you have a public-facing job, there's a lot of pressure to keep your looks up and to look young. But my concern is more so when it's really young people, or I would say even for men who are doing this, you really don't need to. Like,
it is brutal. I mean, some of the young girls, supposed to be young girls that I've seen videos of on TikTok, these like 22, 23-year-old chicks, and they look mid-30s or 40s with all of this work that's been done. And I was having a conversation last night about how the sort of ideal female form has changed, even with sort of relatively extreme cosmetic procedures. So Geordie Shore, which was the British equivalent of Jersey Shore, that back in the day was a lot about fake tan. It was big hair.
Yeah.
It was almost pin-up-y in a way. It was tight
suits too, weren't they?
That's something else. But yes, that was sort of part.
Chavs. I learned what a chav was.
Chav,
when I was living.
Exactly. Well, look, hey, be careful, right? Those were
Is that offensive?
those were my customers. It's kind of like calling someone a hick. No, it's not.
Oh, okay. I mean it with love.
Me too. But those were my customers for a very long time.
Okay.
It was fake tan. It was big boobs. Maybe augmented, maybe not.
Brows too, very specific eyebrow.
Very painted on, sort of aggressive brows. big hair, tight dress, short dress, right?
I love that. Just to be clear, I'm not making fun of it.
That aesthetic,
Yeah.
strong aesthetic,
Yeah.
great early 2010s aesthetic. And the guys equivalent, I think, up until probably about 5 years ago, we were a little bit delayed on the guys thing, was sort of big muscles, not so concerned with height, fake tan, plunging V-neck neckline, tight jeans, expensive watch thing.
Chains?
Yeah, maybe. But so what I was trying to do with this conversation I was having last night, which is so interesting, I was trying to work out what was being signaled then and what's being signaled now.
Okay.
And I think what's being signaled now is a more extreme version of that by both men and women. So the male thing, it's all about formidability now. It's the over-exaggerated, handsome Squidward cheekbones and the jawline. It's the height.
Yeah.
The height. But it's a lot less to do with, I'm not really seeing anyone talk about tan all that much. Not even seeing, if you look at
dark brows are really big for guys.
The most popular Lux Maxes aren't that concerned with muscularity, extreme muscularity in the way that it would have been 10 years ago.
Yeah.
10 years ago, it would have just been get as wide and as muscular as possible. That's not quite the case now. And then with the women, it is both of them are basically caricatures of the most sexually dimorphic physical traits, right? It's Fisherian runaway, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Where the stag that's got the stag deer that's got antlers so big that he can't lift his head up and he dies. The peacock that's got such a ridiculous tail that he gets caught with the first second there's a predator around. But like he did some great boning on the way out. That seems to be what's happening with men and women now. It's just what the next evolution. It's more extreme limb lengthening surgery, the brows, the cheekbones, the mandible surgery, all that stuff.
For women especially, I think it can also be the equivalent of showing off an expensive handbag. So instead of saying, here's my designer bag, or
here's my designer titties,
or that my lips or whatever, like I have a man who will pay for my surgery and make me look like this.
It's a good argument for why, that I've heard about why women have long nails and long hair. It's just fucking impractical. So it is itself a status of wealth and luxury, that not only can I maintain them, but I have a life that requires so little hard labor that this hair and these nails and this makeup. I mean, the female intersexual competition is just like fucking endlessly interesting.
Yeah.
Right? Like shoes and bags. Exclusively intersexual.
Yeah.
I do not know the difference between whatever you're wearing and something that was 1/10 the price and something that was 1,000 times the price. I have no idea. But women do. Women know. And if you're in a relationship, it's basically my man is so invested in me that he spent however much money on this thing. So like, don't even think about going there.
Which is why I also think that women tend to go a little bit overboard in some cases with the work done as a way to signal that they have the money and the resources, or man that is paying for it. Because usually when you think of plastic surgery, men don't like plastic surgery. Typically, men, they don't like it in women because
what's the data there?
It masks their underlying health and fertility, right? So if a woman can turn back the clock in terms of aging, signs of aging, or appear more attractive than she naturally was, or maybe you don't mind so much, but from the conversations I've had with men tend to not really like plastic surgery.
No, I agree.
Natural beauty.
I agree. I mean, I saw this tweet after the Grammys that fucking ripped, and it was, men love Sydney Sweeney and hate Sabrina Carpenter. Women love Sabrina Carpenter and hate Sydney Sweeney. And the explanation that I saw, I was so fascinated by it. I thought and it seems to be pretty accurate. I don't know that many guys that I love Sabrina Carpenter. And I don't know that many women that love Sydney Sweeney.
That's funny. I've seen this. I mean, I think they're both pretty. So I don't know. I guess I'm like one of the odd ones.
You need to be more judgmental. The best explanation that I saw was that Sabrina Carpenter, her physical presentation is basically gay and female coded. And Sydney Sweeney is sort of low maintenance, natural male coded beauty. Less sort of curated in that sort of a way. And that low maintenance thing sort of seems to come across. But yeah, I think the reliable signal of fitness cue that's being sort of hidden by lots of plastic surgery is so true. And I get the sense that the lux maxing community for men is doing the same thing.
I was going to ask you about that. Like, what are your views? Because when I write about this, I get a lot of young men who get upset at me and say, like, you don't understand, right? This is
the time for the fucking patriarchy to step in.
Mansplain away.
Writing as a woman. Sit down. Let me mansplain to you. What do I think? I think I have I think this is an interesting take.
My advice to guys is just work away, get rich. Honestly,
get rich.
Don't worry about all the taking the hormones to make your bone structure.
I would say get rich, get popular. Looks are important, but you can make some pretty good changes just by becoming more diligent. What I would say about the lux maxing thing is what guys seem to be optimizing for is formidability. So they're optimizing for the sort of things that other men respect, not that women are attracted to. So other men would, if you look at most guys that have lux maxed and put them in front of women, I wonder whether women would find them more attractive.
So it's intersexual competition again.
Or whether men would find them more formidable. I think that more men would find them more formidable than more women would find them more attractive.
Because most women are not looking for their guys to be hyper masculine like that.
There's even some evidence to suggest that women prefer a slightly feminized face with a masculinized body.
And not super jacked either.
No, not super jacked. They want average face or sometimes actually slightly feminized face with masculinized body.
Yeah.
But all of the guys are just pushing toward heavier browed, a deeper jaw, stronger cheekbones. But you know the David Putz study that he did about when he brought people into the lab and got women to rate attractiveness and men to rate formidability?
Remind me.
So fucking good. So photos of guys shown to women and men. Women were asked to rank how attractive do you think this man is. Men were asked to rank how likely do you think it is that you could beat this other man in a fight. 1 year later, they brought the men from the photos into the lab and asked what their sexual success had been over the last year. And the female ratings of attractiveness had basically zero predictive power for their sexual success. But the male ratings of formidability were very predictive.
Wow.
So even though what I think is happening at level 1, this is like the Epstein files, at level 1, where he didn't kill himself, is lux maxers are optimizing for formidability because they're disregarding women. And it's intrasexual competition because I just want to mog other guys. I just want to be better than other men. Level 2, Epstein's still alive and playing Fortnite in Israel, is actually by pursuing formidability, they may end up closing their eyes and throwing the dart at the dartboard and hitting the bullseye of women actually finding them more attractive than if they'd tried to pursue attractiveness as the main outcome. But this is working theory at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, because I could see that in terms of tattoos, there have been studies to show that men, when they get tattoos, it actually is more so about scaring off their male rivals because women don't. Some women like tattoos, but not all do. And some women actually are turned off by tattoos. So it's more, again, like you said, of scaring off and beating your rivals than directly attracting women. But I also wonder if it's that these men are projecting onto women their preferences. So men care more about looks and, youth. So I wonder if when you look at, say, marriage or marital satisfaction, whether men find their wives attractive has a greater correlation with their marital satisfaction than whether women find their husbands attractive. So I wonder if these young guys are projecting onto women thinking that women care so much about looks when it's actually that's what they care about in their partners. So
it's a failure of cross-sex mind reading using their own assessment criteria and saying, you must think the way that I think. I'll do more beautification. Well, Mac and Murphy's got this great idea where he talks about how the increases in male beautification are to try and offset this inability to get hypergamy to work. That men have realized that because they can't win socioeconomically, they might have to turn
I've read about this. That's crazy,
the vanity mirror around in an attempt to out-beautify their socioeconomic lack.
Yeah, especially when they're young and they're just starting out in their career and they're thinking, okay, how do I attract women? I don't have the money yet, don't have the resources. Well, I can just get really hot.
there's worse theories. There are worse theories. What about the effects of sexlessness in marriage?
Ooh, I can tell you, when I was in research, I would interview some men who had not had sex in like decades, which is wild.
In a marriage?
Yeah, in a marriage.
Married men who'd not had sex in decades.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, there's a lot of cheating. Not that that's justified, but I think it can be very damaging to a relationship, even if you're not married, to be sexless, because that's a way to bond with your partner. Especially for men, they tend to use sex as a way to have intimacy, like emotional closeness with their partner.
One of the few places that they can.
Yeah. So I feel for people out there. Marriage, I'm assuming marriage is very difficult as is, and I'm not sure what would be useful for your audience, like how to overcome that. Put your phones away, number one. It's crazy, some of the stats I was reading in terms of people using social media during sex, right after
Fuck
sex.
off.
Yeah, that same study. During. I can't remember the stat
How?
off the top of my head. It's in Sextinction that I cited it. But I don't know. I was trying to figure that out myself. I'm thinking, how do you excuse yourself to go post something and then come back?
You can't be posting. It can't be posting. There's no way that you can do that. I could see scrolling at
Or if
best.
you go to the bathroom, maybe.
During sex.
Or even right after, that's pretty bad.
It's the during that gets me. Maybe it was my friend strapping their Instagram to the forehead. Maybe it's just that. I don't know. Yeah, I found this.
But that's sorry. I was going to say there's another study that showed the more that people are on their phones and ignoring their partners, they have less sex, which makes sense.
Is that called fubbing? Flubbing.
Yeah.
Flubbing. They need to rename that. It's a stupid name. Arthur Brooks and Matthew Hussey taught me some interesting stuff around this about sort of revitalizing, and James Sexton as well taught me some interesting stuff, but Arthur's was more neuroscientifically backed. That one of the problems you have in long-term marriages is that safety turns into consistency, turns into comfort, turns into laziness. And that we just go through the same dance. We do it on a Tuesday and it happens in this way. And there's no distance. There's no intrigue. Where'd you go today? Are you wearing something new? This is a little bit different. There's no push and pull, right? And a lot of the chemistry and the reason that I think people so enlivened and excited at the start of a relationship is there's so much to discover about someone. When you feel like there's nothing left to discover, sort of where am I injecting my fantasy into, literally? And bringing that back online, Arthur had a pretty interesting sort of few-step process, which was to basically flirt. It's like to flirt with your partner throughout the day and to treat them as if they're an object of desire, especially if you're male to female. This is something that Esther Perel I got wrong. I should have pushed back against when she came on the show. And she said something to the effect of, what woman has been aroused because she's seen her partner aroused? I'm like, I understand what you mean at sort of the first level, but almost every definition of female arousal includes my partner desires me. Like being desired by their partner. Yeah. So what better, that's the most non-fungible, like difficult to fake signal that I desire you is me being aroused. So you go, okay, I think that you probably can do the unmarried fucking 38-year-old guy telling people who are married how to re-enliven their sex life. I think that there is good legs to like make flirting great again. That's my argument.
Or I was going to say, if your lady is down for it, to try on a wig.
Try on a wig? Me?
No. Well, I mean, you can if you want to.
To be someone different?
For
role play?
Yeah. If she is willing to put on a wig, because then
she's willing to put on a wig.
Completely change the way she looks. If you're looking for sexual novelty. But then do something nice for her. Get her flowers, obviously.
And then get her a wig.
If she wants to wear one, yeah.
That's interesting. I remember reading Roy Baumeister is doing a fucking awesome series on sexual novelty at the moment.
Okay.
On his Substack. It is a travesty. Everyone needs to go and read Roy Baumeister's Substack because it's got 3 likes and they're all me and my friends. And he's the GOAT, right? He's the guy that did the original marshmallow test. And he's writing about sexual novelty at the moment. And he finds this story of a client that was working with a therapist And she was saying that, I think this was quite a while ago, and she was saying that her husband was struggling to be excited in the bedroom. And this was a long time before porn. And after a while, weeks and months of this lady coming in, and this was a repeating challenge that was being had. Maybe he's just a bit old, or maybe he's whatever. And the therapist asked, have you, what is it that you're doing to him? And the client explained, and it wasn't particularly intimate. Said, have you considered using your hand? She said, like my hand on him? No. And she said, okay, why don't you just try and do that? And sure enough, went back, and this had, the most amazing effect, because sexual novelty had been so constrained to one thing for fucking 5 decades that simply the act, like second base, was enough to blow this guy's mind, this dude in his 60s or 70s, because that was something that he'd never got to experience. I just thought that was so interesting to, whether it's the Coolidge effect or some sort of equivalent, like refractory, what novelty looks like. But this series from Baumeister is fucking sick. He basically makes the argument that in a relationship, if this is the one, you should titrate the sexual access and sexual novelty as slowly as possible. And it's going to suck. I mean, it sucked for the women as well. Actually, it won't suck for a long time. But I really think that there's something to it. I really think that I think he's fucking nailed it. And all he's doing is respecting the neurobiology, especially of men. He's going to do a separate treatment on women. He's only done it on men so far. But basically, if you're like, this is the chick for me, okay, move as slowly as possible through the different stages of doing things, because there is only so much sexual novelty that you can have. And once you've gone to the end or close to the end, it doesn't feel as exciting to sort of skip back. Like if you know how the story ends, how the book, the series finishes, reading the middle bit is just less enlivening. Yeah, sure, I'll give it another read, but it's nowhere near as... So he's, turn one page a week type thing and, stretch this book out over a decade or so. I thought it was really interesting. Yeah,
I mean, I think that speaks to also why casual sex is not a good thing. I think it's better for both sexes to be less promiscuous, but definitely if you have sex on the first date, a man's going to put you in the short-term bucket. But even if not, I would say even if you have sex too soon and you're dating somebody, at some level, there, like you said, it's like shortening that book.
How does it feel to believe this and say this as a former sexologist writer?
I'm probably alienating like 90% of the field. I mean, there are certain things when you are in the field. I should say I have many friends and colleagues who do amazing work and who are very unbiased. They're not politically motivated. They just do their research, and I respect that. My issue is when people are, quote, sex positive and they're pushing these narratives that are unhelpful and that I think are doing a disservice to our society.
Is it not empowerment?
And it's leading us to be sexless, ultimately. No, I don't think it's empowerment. I think it's masked as empowering, but they're lies, ultimately. And I find the fact that people get so upset by me challenging these ideas tells me that I'm onto something, because why do they get so defensive? If what I'm saying is completely nonsense, why do they feel the need to push back so badly? But yeah, this book is full of
heretical ideas.
Anti-sex positivity, thoughts that are not allowed, I guess. But it was amazing for me to write because I like to challenge myself and say, if there are thoughts or beliefs that you don't want to look at, you have to look at those. And you have to ask yourself why you don't want to. And if you're afraid of alienating or upsetting people, that's not a reason to question.
What about sex dolls? What'd you learn? They good? Are they bad? Did you design one?
I made one in my likeness. I did. Well, I was on the hunt to make
Was it
one
for
in my
sale?
likeness. I'm not answering that question. It was actually a lot of fun to go on that exploration. So in each chapter, I go into a little like mini adventure. That's what I call them, where I go and I research the technology and try it out. And so I went and explored sex dolls and robots, and it's crazy what's out there. It's very, very realistic, I have to say. I didn't consummate my relationship with any of these dolls, but in terms of...
It would have been weird to have done it with your own one.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I thought, is that technically masturbation or is that, what is that?
What's autogynephilia? Which one's that one?
Autogynephilia is when you are sexually aroused a man is sexually aroused at the thought of having the body of a woman. So when you see someone who's born male who has a desire to transition to female, that is, if they are attracted to women or if they are attracted to both men and women, that's autogynephilia. Whereas if they are born male and attracted to men and want to transition to female, then it's considered the gay subtype. So this was my first book, The End of Gender. But basically, yeah, autogynephilia is a huge, huge motivator for the whole trans ideology, activism.
I wonder if
the ones who are the angriest are autogynephiles.
I wonder if you would be able to provide them with... I wonder if you could get people a self-sex doll of them, but the opposite sex.
Oh, I've seen some people do this. They will get like
You're fucking kidding me.
No,
I thought this was a new idea. I was breaking new ground. I made a joke to see if we can eBay your old sex doll and try and, fucking help the advance of the book and get some sales in there.
Thank you.
and then I thought this was new frontiers, but people have got sex dolls of themselves in the opposite sex.
Yeah, and they wear them.
What's wear them mean?
Well, they put it on themselves to become that.
So it's like a suit.
Yeah. So it's not really a doll, I guess. It's more like a rubber suit, but it's in the fashion to look like a doll to some degree because it's like silicone material.
Okay.
Yeah. But what else can I tell your audience? We're getting there. The sex robots are definitely coming. They are.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a line between doll and robot?
So right now, like the AI software is I love that chapter. Writing the chapter on the AI companions was so much fun. It was also just so frightening for me because they're so realistic. But so that importing that into a doll is very much possible. Now it's just about the question of how do you get the robot to move in a realistic way sexually? So you have robots that can, say, gyrate their hips or they'll have like internal suctions in the vagina. So it helps with an orgasm. What other things can they do? But in terms of the movement, it's still quite limited. The difference between a doll and a robot would be that physical movement. So a doll is stationary. Or sometimes they'll hang them, but I guess it's still stationary. Like
they'll hang them?
They'll hang them up on, so they're like standing.
What are they doing with them when they're standing?
Well, you can look that up.
Okay, fair enough. I don't need to. I have to assume that the market for sex dolls is 99.99% men, or are there some women in this?
Mostly men. And during the pandemic, one company told me they made $20 million in sales, which is astronomical.
Wow.
And it is mostly high school educated. So on average, high school educated men who make about $40K a year.
How much are the dolls?
Divorced. Starts at couple hundred to tens of thousands, depending how realistic you want it to be.
Okay, so if you're a blue-collar worker, you're going for the more sort of entry-level one.
Yeah. There are some guys who are, say, make more, like I'm thinking of one particular study where they had the income, and so some guys making, say, more than 6 figures will have the dolls, but it tends to be more among men who either, I think, are quite heartbroken and they don't want to bother going through, or they're divorced, they don't want to go through the process of dating. Or it's guys who want to have sexual novelty, but they can't actually either attract real-life partners or they don't have the means for it, so they'll buy the dolls instead.
That makes me sad. The idea that, someone's past emotional challenges, whether deserved or accidental or purposeful, victimized, whatever, it causes them to sort of turn away entirely from human.
Yeah.
And I suppose that the fact that you now have this option for someone to, I don't need to. You can just imagine. What about the AI companions thing? I saw a bunch of furor 2 or 3 weeks ago when ChatGPT discontinued 4.0, and 4.0 had a very particular type of personality to it, and that discontinuation was for lots of people. There was a subreddit, and I can't remember what it's called, AI partner, r/AI partner or something. People being beyond hysterics, like absolutely fucking heartbroken by it. So what was your experience with AI companions?
Because people do fall in love with their AI chatbots. And before I tested them out, I didn't think such a thing would be possible because I didn't think that the technology was that realistic.
Until you fell in love with one.
Until I fell in love with all of my dozens of AI boyfriends.
You had dozens?
I had dozens.
Do you like Bonnie Blue? Go on.
I had girlfriends too. So I had
Okay.
so I made dozens of them across dozens of platforms. I really wanted to try them all out to see where are they at. And there were a couple of platforms that were definitely more realistic. But I will say what happened with ChatGPT, that's not the first time. There's another platform that something similar happened a couple of years ago where they removed the erotic role-playing capabilities, or they put it behind a paywall. And people were so devastated because they said, my AI doesn't remember me anymore. Like, they're really cold. It reminded them of being socially rejected in the past, and it's very upsetting for them. So again, I mean, the scientist side of me thinks like this is so cool and so crazy that we're advancing so quickly. But then the other part of me says, wait a minute, like, look at where we are right now as a society. And is this really a good thing? Because what is this going to do now? If we have this discrepancy in terms of the sex ratio and people having sex and people not even wanting to connect or date. There's a study by Pew showing that over half of single people are not interested in dating at all. So now we have
not in short term, not in casual or long term mating.
Yeah.
It's wild. I remember seeing that study.
It's going to be so easy just to go down the route of one of these alternatives. And they are so realistic. Like, you really cannot tell that it is an AI. If I had not programmed it and myself had said, this is your name, this is what you look like, this is your personality.
It's only over text, though, right? Is it voice?
You could do voice too.
So kind of like when you speak to ChatGPT.
Yeah, I thought like it sounded like a real person I was talking to.
And does it push into erotica as well?
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
They flirt with you. They get, like, if you're sarcastic, they pick up on it. It was crazy. Like, I really thought it was going to be very stilted. Some of them are still like that, where some platforms you have to be very literal.
To really work with it.
Yeah.
They're a difficult partner.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the biggest story about sort of human needs and relating beyond bits, just not going into bits at the same rate anymore? Like, people aren't doing the thing, but what does that tell us about the ways that humans are connecting? What's the deeper lesson?
That we're not connecting. That's what I think. There are a lot of stand-ins for connection, like something as simple as having a conversation in person versus over a screen. There's a difference there. There's a difference biologically in terms of like how we respond to that. And I just think more broadly in society, like if you go out, I'm sure Austin is the same as Toronto, where or maybe it's not, but most people are on their phones. What I'm thinking, when you're at the airport, you're on the plane, everywhere in public, everyone is just on their phone all the time. People don't really talk to each other, even make eye contact. And I do think that has larger ramifications beyond something so small as preferring to look at your phone, because you're bored or whatever. And so I think that over time has snowballed into this thing where we are very much like enclosed. We all have our own little bubbles. Because it's like the norm now socially. It's seen as weird to talk to strangers or to make small talk, or it's like cringy or whatever. But especially in terms of romantic context, like everything is made to be so simple and convenient with like dating apps, or people say using social media to meet. But that's not really meeting someone in real life. And it's almost as though the convenience of it is a reason as to why people don't take it so seriously, right? If it's so easy to meet people, why would you care? It didn't cost you anything. It didn't require anything of you.
Yeah. A home-cooked meal is treated with more love than a McDonald's.
Yeah. Although, I mean, I'm very healthy, but I would say, McDonald's was great at one point.
McDonald's is good, but you're never going to look at it and think, this is a very valuable meal, unless you're starving.
Right.
Okay, what about fertility rates and reproduction? Like, because ultimately, everything that we've spoken about up until now is the proximate reason for behavior. Right? All of it is just, it's pleasure and it's connection and it's all the rest of it. But the ultimate reason for the behavior is to reproduce.
Right.
Right? It is the same. It is not far off the same as saying we have managed to construct a world in which these screens and this media and these xenoestrogens and this culture and these thoughts and the way that this has come together has caused people to throw themselves off of buildings. Like, because genetically that is the equivalent, right? Survival and reproduction. And the only reason for the survival is so that you can do the reproduction. If you didn't need to survive, it would just be reproduction. Yeah. How have we managed to get ourselves to the stage where an animal has been convinced to select themselves out of breeding?
Because life is so distractible. We're so distracted, right? It's so easy to be... Well, relationships are hard, right? Dating is hard. Finding someone is hard. Connecting with people is hard because people are unreliable. people have their own decisions and autonomy as they should. And so when you have alternatives, either romantic alternatives or just ways to pass the time that don't involve that messiness, I think it can be quite alluring. So I agree with you. I don't think everyone has to have children, but I do think for people who want kids, like I'm concerned about the people who, like one of the reasons for 25% of people who aren't having children, they say the reason is because they haven't found somebody, which I imagine is quite devastating. And so I also talk in the book about single motherhood by choice and the fact that there are real implications for this discrepancy in terms of the sex bias and people not wanting to connect, or people say not being able to connect. Women.
What discrepancy? Sorry.
Oh, just that there are fewer viable men. So, and these men typically are less interested in settling down, or there's going to be less commitment as a result of that. Because when you have a smaller pool of men, like on university campuses where you have fewer men than women, men are going to set the terms of dating and relationships and sex.
That's what you were talking about earlier on, that women think that if men are more desperate socioeconomically, that they'll work harder for the women. It's kind of like a perspective around sex ratios. They have an implicit understanding around sex ratios. They just don't understand mating preferences from women to men, which is that they're going to largely be invisible.
Yeah, well, that men are going to be setting the terms then of dating. So
the high value men will be.
In terms of how soon you're going to have sex, or they'll go somewhere else, or, you know, if they want commitment from you, but they want to be quote polyamorous or whatever, you're going to have to put up with that.
I learned a new term last year, which is solo poly.
Oh, yeah. Remind me what that is. I've heard of this.
It's a guy typically, or it's a person who is just sleeping around. It's just a guy that's sleeping around. But I think that a lot of the partners may think that they're the hub,
right.
And then there's lots of spokes coming off. Solo poly.
Yeah.
Okay. When it comes to the reproduction thing, you mentioned IVF, fertility windows, other stuff. What else is interesting there?
My issue with that, again, and if people choose to seek these interventions, you know, it's not my place to judge them. I can understand if you want to have a family and it's going to help you, then I understand why people go that path. But my concern is that we're not rectifying the underlying issues. So if the issue is women can't find a partner with whom they'd like to settle down with, or there are fertility issues on the man or the woman's side, or on both people's side, then these interventions aren't really solving the underlying problem, right? And so that's only just going to get worse for future generations and for the individual people who are potentially undergoing these interventions.
I got in a lot of trouble for talking about birthright decline this year.
Oh, really?
Before the year even started, I got in loads of trouble about it. I did some more digging. I went and did some sort of quite hardcore data digging around this. One interesting fact that I found was that the total maternal rate has basically not changed. The TMR, it's called. Total maternal rate is the number of children per mother. The number of children per mother, I think, has gone from, over the last 50 years, something like 2.6 to 2.45, 2.4, something like that. So it is not, the big difference is not mothers having fewer children. It's women not becoming mothers. And again, one of the things I got shouted at about was putting it all on women. Unfortunately, census data, World Health Organization, CDC, the only people who, they only capture data about mothers. Like they don't have fatherhood data.
Right.
Parental uncertainty might contribute a little bit to that. Absentee fathers and stuff like that as well. Abandoning mothers, like pregnant women, like might contribute too. But anyway, so you have 4 out of 5 women who end up without children, having broken through menopause, didn't intend to be childless. It's called involuntary childlessness. You've got this really interesting situation, which I don't know why more women, I understand why more women aren't talking about it, because it kind of goes counter to what the current very pushed narrative is. But that's 80%, 4 out of 5 women who end up without kids, who didn't intend to end up without kids. Around about 10% of women can't physiologically.
Right.
Awful pain, grief. Around about 10% of women don't want to, voluntary childlessness. And then 4 out of 5 women have support groups with other women to grieve over families that they never had. Like, who the fuck's campaigning for them? That feels like a group that's really important. Really, really important. And ever growing.
Yeah.
But you have this weird dynamic at the moment, which is any woman who is still fertile can endorse the view that women don't need to have kids without having to embody it. Because until they can no longer have it, they always have the option to still do it.
Right.
And I wonder, I really hope that this isn't the case, but I get the sense that I'm right, but early on this, that we are going to see a huge fucking crisis of middle-aged femininity within the next 15 years, when a lot of Gen Z and millennial women age out of their ability to have kids and focused on one area of life that they maybe really enjoyed and took a lot of value from, and you know, good for you. You don't need to be beholden to anybody, and that's awesome. But to sort of turn around and go, fuck, I wish I'd done something different. And I really hope that that's not the case. I don't take any glee in women who don't want to have kids having them, and women that want to have kids not being able to. Mm-hmm. But I think we're going to see. We think that the fucking crisis of masculinity is bad at the moment among young men. I think that the one around women is going to be way worse.
Yeah, I think being able to talk about, especially women's work-life balance and how women structure their lives, is important to be able to talk about it honestly, because, like you said, I think there's a real push for young women to focus on career. And I'm all for women being ambitious and making their own money and being successful. I think that's fantastic. But I think there is this false idea that motherhood is somehow a burden or that it's unimportant. I think both sides of the political aisle make some good points and also make some fallacies. In that, I think, say, progressives will say motherhood is terrible. You know, it's what's the term that they use? Domestic
prostitute.
No, that's an interesting way of putting it. It's something about, what is it? The cost of basically that, you know, like you're going to be destitute because as a woman, you have to be...
No more financial independence. You're reliant on your partner.
It's so expensive. And, you know, if you do focus on raising a family, then you don't make money, and then you put yourself in potentially abusive situations. Like, you know, like there's all that, which, can happen.
Mm-hmm. No one wants to be a financial prisoner. This is what no one talks about the low divorce rate in the past. Mm-hmm. That how much of the low divorce rate was because the women had nowhere else to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So I understand that side of it. But at the same time, you know, if a woman decides to have children, she is going to be the primary caretaker. Like, the way that progressives frame it is that the man can just step in and do half of the chores and whatever. No, the baby's going to prefer mom.
The baby wants mom.
Mom's body.
Baby wants mom.
Yeah. And then the other side is, you know, not all conservatives, but there's a sentiment among conservatives to tell young women, don't worry about your education and career, just get married young, have tons of children, and worry about your career later. But that's difficult. If you have no work experience, how are you going to get a job in your field, especially nowadays, if you have no work experience, right?
Well, especially given how difficult it is to support a family on a single person income.
Yeah, that too.
So look, I think that everybody that wants to have kids should be able to afford to have kids. Mm-hmm. And the fact that people can't afford to have kids, or more accurately, I think, feel like they can't afford to have kids, given that the poorest countries are the ones that have got the highest birth rates. Yeah. I think that's awful. I think it's awful that people can't afford to have kids or feel like they can't afford to have kids. But I don't think that that's the issue. I think if you were to ask any couple, or almost any couple, especially married couple, what's the reason that you haven't yet had kids? It's not going to be that they're too expensive. The issue, and most of the commentariat that's throwing their opinions into that's throwing their opinions into the fucking mess with this, are single people saying it's too expensive to have kids. You're not in a relationship. This is like you telling me how much you'd beat some guy up that stood in the ring while you're in the stands. Yeah. Like, you're not in the situation where you can talk about having kids. It's not what you're facing. So I wonder how much of this, and this may be from the guy's side too, I wonder how much of this is kids are too expensive to have is a much easier explanation than I can't find a partner to have them with.
I definitely think financial reasons could be part of it. But I do think when you're speaking of women who are getting to an age where my sense is some women may not be aware that their biological window is definitive. Like,
how tight is it?
Well, women's fertility drops down by half by 35. And then, menopause starts into your 40s by mid 40s. So there's you can't really negotiate with biology at that point. I mean, you can use the technology, you can try, but we all have our windows, and it's, like I said, set.
I remember reading a tweet from fucking Stefan Molyneux, like 6-7 years ago, like culture warring before the culture war was even a thing. And he was having some pop on Taylor Swift's 30th birthday, basically saying, Taylor Swift turned 30 today, 90% of her eggs are gone. I wish that she'd become a mother.
See, that type of commentary is not nice.
It's not helping. And I always had that in the back of my mind. Just one of these things, it kind of kicked up a big furor. And it's just a fucking prick thing to say. But I did a little bit of research. The reason that 90% figure is true, but I didn't realize it's because girls lose their eggs before they hit puberty. I think 50% of your lifetime eggs are gone by the time that you become, is the word fertile? I guess, or like able to have kids?
Yeah.
Or like whatever, your puberty comes online and 50% of them are gone. Like, that doesn't feel... The 90% number, that feels like somebody's inflated the stock price or something.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say also, speaking to the fertility issues or the endocrine disruptors, when a girl is born, she's born with all the eggs she's ever going to have. So if her mother was exposed to something when she was in the uterus, that's going to affect her daughter and her grandchildren potentially, because it's affecting the eggs.
There's 3 generations of people, 3 generations of women in the same location for a brief period of time.
Yeah. But my hope, and what I like with your podcast, is that it's very much like balanced. And I really want to try and close this division between men and women, because I think that's a big part of also why this is happening.
The adversarial narrative.
Yeah. And why they're not interested in having sexual relationships or being close. You're having that intimacy, because so much of this discourse is so polarizing and so much about blaming the opposite sex for everything that's going wrong, not just in terms of dating and relationships, but just
the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, instead of cooperation, each sex just optimizes against the other.
Yeah.
It's just this evolutionary arms race, but it's been turned up to everything. It's like, yeah, okay, there is a kind of, I come up with a way to be funny or cute or attractive or whatever. And after a while, that strategy sort of becomes detected. And then I need to demonstrate more value and so on and so forth. And it's just that, but not even on steroids, like in a fucking different universe where the humans are so tribal that we're even splitting ourselves up based on fucking sex, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Okay, can anything be done top down to fix this? Give me some proposed solutions.
Yeah.
I
was going to say with the co-evolutionary arms race, so that's David Buss's theory.
The GOAT.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine, a mentor.
Daddy David.
And it definitely shows up. It's amazing, because once you become aware of this dynamic and how men and women are constantly trying to outcompete each other, you see it in everything. So in terms of advice, I would say I'll start with women. I definitely think people should meet in real life as opposed to on apps or through social media or online or whatever. So I do think men should be the ones to approach women. So women have to make it so obvious if they're into someone. And things you can do, I have suggestions in Sextinction, but one big one is to smile very obviously. And if you're like me and you have resting bee face, to practice smiling in the mirror until it's not uncomfortable and not awkward, which can take some time. But I guarantee you, like, if you see a man you find attractive and you smile at him, he will come and talk to you. Hopefully,
cultivate receptivity.
Yeah, exactly. Because men are biologically wired to pick up on these cues. And there's a part of the brain called the medial orbital frontal cortex that lights up when someone sees an attractive face. And it lights up even more strongly when that face is smiling. So I thought that was really fascinating, because
your resting bitch face is resting ugly face to a degree.
Or it's like resting F off face. Yeah. And also things like touching your hair, touch your face, your neck, adjust your clothing, things like that. Men are, again, going to pick up on this and see this as a sign that you're interested.
Okay.
And so that will help to remedy, I think, some of the backlash or the difficulty after Me Too. And then for guys, and the other thing I would say to women is, so basically your options are to compete for the high status guys, right? To date someone whom you may consider, if you are, say, a very educated, successful, financially successful woman, you may feel like you're dating a guy who's less successful than you, but that's totally fine, right? My issue is when society's telling women this is a great solution, like just have a house husband. You don't need to go for these guys. You can make your own money and you can be the provider in in the household. And no, higher rates of divorce, as
badly.
you said. Yeah, higher rates of domestic violence, higher rates of male cheating when that happens. So, not to say that happens for everybody, but I think just to also have a bit of compassion for men who are struggling, because my sense is women, we are doing very well, right? And I don't think it takes anything away from women's success or women's ability to succeed by having some compassion for men who are struggling. And then I would say to guys, it's probably a combination in terms of why young men are not doing as well. I think the mental health aspects, eat healthy food, that goes for women too. But there have been studies that have shown if you cut out ultra-processed food, depression will remit on its own. There was one study I remember reading, it was crazy. Within 12 weeks, a third of the sample that had depression had it go into remission on its own.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you're struggling like with your mental health, or I guess I should talk to the camera when I say this, but if you're struggling with your mental health, eat healthy food, go to the gym. I'm sure Chris's audience knows, work out, get sunshine. And I would also say if you can go without porn for 30 days, try and see if that helps you. You might be surprised at your motivation.
I did not expect that you're going to be a proponent for NoFap.
Well, I hear from so many guys that it's helped them. So I'm willing to go there. I'm curious. Let me know how it goes, okay? As a woman, tell me how it goes.
Every single day, report in on how your NoFap is going with an update.
I want detailed notes. I want an Excel spreadsheet. Yeah.
I'm sure that will appreciate. That'll go well. Debra, you're great. I really appreciate you. Where should people go to check out everything you're doing?
So you can get, should I talk to the camera or should I tell you?
No, talk to me.
Okay. You should get Sextinction, The Decline of Sex and the Future of Intimacy. You can get it on Simon & Schuster's website. You can get it everywhere you get books. You can get it at drdebrasoh.com. And the audiobook is read by me, and you can get it for free on Audible.
Sounds awesome. I think you're doing the goddess's work. Really, really cool. Really, really awesome stuff. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for tuning in. Congratulations for making it to the end of an entire episode. Another one that I think you'll enjoy is right here.